Hi, today I have a special guest star. It's a friend of mine from a long time ago, Mr. Andrew David McIntosh. He's even stolen my name in the middle. He's got his parents named him Andrew David McIntosh, and it's a real big pleasure for me to have him here. And it's a pleasure for him too because he's just had lunch, right. A late belated lunch, and so. We go a long way back, Andrew and I. When did we first meet, Andrew?
I would say it's back at the Otago Chess Club days in Dunedin, and probably the Friday night chess, which was run by Gerald Williams, and you get upwards of say 50 young children.
Wow.
Playing in about 3 different grades from A through to C. Maybe a bit of D as well, and that was a really great time growing up, and being first introduced to the game of chess. And of course, this is where I also got to meet David, amongst other friends from the
sad event.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
And so that was some years ago. So we're doing our Chess and Life interview.
Mm-hmm.
And that incorporates other questions too, of course, Andrew and I.
Sure.
And I have to do this just for health and safety reasons and all that sort of thing. I've sort of given you a rough guideline of some of the precarious questions that I'm going to ask you, haven't I?
Yes, you have, but not all of them.
Not all of them. You're just covering your bases, are you? You're a bit of a chess response, that isn't it? Really?
Well, I don't have the cheat sheet, David. You've got all the moves on your side.
I have, yes. Who taught you chess, Andrew?
Well, I would say that our grandfather had a chess set, and that was passed on to my adoptive father, and at some stage or other that game got brought out, and I think I learnt some of the moves there. But then probably the main learning came at Corstorphine Primary School in Dunedin.
Yes.
And my teacher in Stanigwang was the famous, at least in chess circles, Gerald Williams. And so Gerald had a school class at lunchtime on chess.
Oh, good.
And so we played that, and then obviously we found out that he also ran the Otago Chess Club on Friday nights.
Yeah.
And so then I got involved in that. I've got 2 sisters, and my next oldest sister below me, she also got interested, so we spent many years at the Otago Chess Club, and really it was thanks to people like Gerald Williams. I mean, Gerald himself,
yes.
I learned how he wasn't necessarily a strong chess player, but he was very much a person who felt that you should give of yourself to help other people.
Yeah, we agree on that, don't
we? Absolutely.
Yeah,
and he and his wife, because his wife very much supported him as well. That They devoted themselves a lot to helping young people, and some of those people went on to greater things. I think of, say, one of my compatriots was Professor Benjamin Martin. That's who he's referred to nowadays, but he came along to the club, and he went on to become a New Zealand champion.
And he was just he was probably just about unbeatable for other senior older chess players like myself and other players from the club back then. That we couldn't get our heads around it.
Well,
he was only about 7 years old.
So he had a natural ability,
yes.
And
so.
It was people like Gerald who provided a platform, and so you can look back on a number of players who've gone on to better things or other things, but they had a really good springboard at the Otago Chess Club.
So anyway, thank you. When did you start playing chess? So it was around about intermediate age, was it?
Well, I would say around about 5 years old would have been when I started, and then through the Well, no, because he'd already passed by that stage.
Oh,
so
okay.
It was.
So you beat him.
Well,
You beat him
that,
sort of like
well,
posthumously.
well, I wouldn't say that I even did that, but
Probably would beat him though.
but Dad had a knowledge of the game, and I can remember becoming aware of the moves through Dad, and it's always good to learn through a parent. But it was also the fact that my parents gave all of us children opportunities to then go on and pursue different things. Some of them pursued music, some of them pursued sport. I pursued chess, probably to my detriment, at least my education. and But that was the sort of thing that we had growing up, and it's a wonderful thing to have those opportunities.
So why do you play chess, Andrew? Why do you actually play it?
Oh, I really like the game because there's a certain attraction to it. There's a scientific aspect to chess, like various moves that you can make,
yeah.
and a certain logic that goes with that, which is sort of appeals to that sort of way of doing things. If I do this, what will happen? If I don't do this, what will happen?
Yeah.
What's the consequence of these decisions or this plan? But there's also this beauty. So there is stuff that you can't naturally sort of calculate in your mind, and there's a sense in which you can almost play from a point of intuition, and you get a combination of intuition where you might play something, you might make a sacrifice, you might play for a particular position, and you don't in a concrete way know why you're doing it, but there's a sense in which it looks to be the right thing to do. And then in another way, you're also up against someone else who's also trying to do the same thing. So if you think of perhaps iron sharpens iron, then it's kind of like you can try out ideas, and you can perfect ideas, and you can become better in those things. And I think chess is one game that really does that. There are others, but for me, that's the game that I got drawn to. And I'm just over 51 these days, so there you go. Now you know how old I am. But from 7.
You're older than me.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
It's not about me,
no,
so
no.
we won't talk about me.
No, but what I would simply say is that you learn things as a child, and then as an adult, and growing on in life, you still carry that.
Learn about age.
You still carry it.
Okay, all right. What does chess do for you?
I think it can be.
You only want the one line positive.
The one line positive.
No, I'm just joking. But
so
what does chess do for you?
I think what it does is it helps you in thinking. So particularly in thinking, particularly in pattern recognition as well. So
yes.
So like I'm an analyst at
at
a bank in New Zealand, and my job is to look after systems, and pretty much I'll look at systems and I'll map out those systems. I'll then think about those systems. How could those systems could be optimized? Why are the systems not working well? And all of these things are sort of things that you do over a chessboard. I mean, I played one guy, and he's a lawyer in Palmerston North, and he was saying to me that he plays chess because it helps him he's a prosecutor, so in a prosecution or in a defence, he thinks about, if I play this part of the law, if I use this defence, am I likely to get a result for my client? So people can use it in a variety of different ways, but you can apply it far beyond the chessboard.
And have I asked this question, what has chess got for you? Have I just asked that, or what does chess do for you? So what has chess got for you? You've spoken about more or less that, haven't you, really?
Yeah, well,
you've sort of encompassed it.
If I would add to that, I'd simply say, like some people like to listen to music. They might like to listen to classical music or a symphony or something that's relaxing, but there's a beauty in the music. And or some people like to read a book, and there can be a beauty in the way that a story is told in a book or in a movie, whatever. But in a game of chess, it's a bit like there's a beauty that is in the game, and it's the beauty of thought. And you can look at a game, you can play through games of masters who've been and gone over a number of centuries now, and, and you can see brilliance, and so that kind of gives you that sense of wow, that you can have in a you can have it in a symphony or something else like that.
Yeah, sure.
But in one sense, for people who perhaps don't play chess, it's less obvious, but it's definitely there as much as you'd see it anywhere else.
Now, moving on, thank you. What do you do? Sorry, my eyes are no good. What? That's because I'm almost approaching 50. What do you do if things don't go well for you in chess? Not in general life, but you could relate it to that. You can talk about anything you like, really.
Well, I think the main thing is that in a game of chess, it's not about how well you played at the beginning of the game. It's how well you end the game, right? Okay, so in a game, you inevitably will make mistakes. It's just if you don't want to make mistakes, don't play chess. That would be my advice. But if you do, basically you can feel that sort of really terrible feeling where it's almost like the blood is you go pale because you realise that you've made a mistake and that probably the game's lost, or you've given an advantage to the opponent. But the key thing, I think, is to keep your cool and continue to look for opportunities. So even if I've made mistakes, I won't get into a mindset of I'm going to lose the game, I'm going to lose the game, I'm going to lose the game. May as well stop the clock and move the pieces away. So what I've done is I basically continue to focus on where are there opportunities to potentially pull things back, how can I make things difficult for my opponent, and so I look at it as a point of view of, okay, I've made a mistake, but let's see how I can undo that or redeem it. And if I get to a stage, where there's nothing left in the tank, and I can obviously see that, then there's really just no point playing on. But what I would do is I would play the game out as much as I can. And sometimes an opponent, when they get an advantage, they can potentially think, oh, I've got to win. And so there's always an opportunity that they might go to sleep somewhat.
Yeah, sure.
And then
the tortoise and the hare.
Yeah, very much like the tortoise and the hare. So the game's not over until the king's toppled, so to speak. And so you never give up. And
within reason.
Within reason.
Yeah,
yes.
within reason. Now, your allegiance. Do you have a provincial allegiance now that you live in the North Island? That you're in our miserable South Island, rubbishy weather here, but do you have a sort of like a wee bit of a string in your heart for Otago still, or are you definitely now a Wellingtonian?
Well, it's almost like a game of two halves, at least this so far, because I lived in Dunedin for 25 years when I got married, so.
Yeah.
And then Lisa and I moved up to Wellington.
Oh, good.
And predominantly that was through work. I mean, Dunedin's got a lot of good things going for it, but job opportunities were such that you needed to chase where the work was, and probably Christchurch is the best centre in the South Island. Because of the numbers.
Thank you.
And then you've got I'm not getting paid for this, by the way. The Wellington is great.
That's what he says.
Wellington is great, by the way, because it's not like Auckland where you've potentially got to travel all over the place. And so Wellington's a good sort of fit for us, and so we've been there for about just over 25 years, and you tend to look at things as we're New Zealanders. We don't get parochial about things.
And no such luck, because a lot of Australians or Kiwis that go over to Australia tend to sort of have this kind of allegiance to New Zealand sports stall, and that's what I've noticed with particular people, which I will not go into detail here.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay, thank you. And we've got about another 502 questions to ask. So.
I wouldn't expect anything different from you, David.
What? And what have been your favourite chess moments? Now we've got one up on the board here, haven't we?
We do.
We have got a game that he's that Mr. McIntosh has featured, and it's about you, not me.
Sure.
But one of your favourite moments, and also you actually toppled the later to become Professor Benjamin Martin in the National School Pupil Champs. And he wasn't very happy because normally at the Otago Chess Club he would be taking the opposite result from you.
Well, it's a funny one because as far
it is very funny.
Well, I'll tell you why I think it's funny, because Ben and I didn't actually play too often at the Otago Chess Club, because he was mainly in the A grade and I was mainly in the B grade, and if I was up in the A grade, it might not have been for too long.
Oh yes.
But
we had about 20 grades then, didn't we?
In the school pupils chess championships, there were two that I specifically remember, and I got to play Ben in both of those. And in one of them, Ben had made an error, and I should have won the game. But Ben's one of these people who doesn't give up, and he continues to fight. And that game ended up in a draw, and we became first equal in that Otago Southland School Pupils Championship.
Was that 1983 or?
That was in what I would call my fifth form year, so I would have been 15, and I was at Bayfield High School, and we had the Bayfield chess team. So because I played, there were some other players who were influenced to play as well. We had John Sutherland, who's
passed away, of course.
Yeah, it was very sad.
Very sad.
Very sad. But he was a good player, and
he went
on to do better than I did, because he persisted with the game, and I went on to different things. And we had another couple of players there who were, good players at board 3 and board 4. So we won the team championship that year.
Yeah.
And then the next year was kind of I should tell the story because it's kind of funny and it's kind of sad. But I went to Otago Boys High School.
That's next move, by the way.
For my sixth form year, and so we put together a team, and so what happened was we got into the last round of the Otago Southland school pupils, and I'm not entirely sure. I'm not even sure whether I even got to play Ben in that tournament. But what happened is we got to the last round, and one of our players, his first name's Nafa, and Nafa was playing against me, and this is the sort of thing that probably isn't such a good advertisement in terms of chess, but he realised that whatever happened in that game, we were only going to get 1 point for the Otago Boys High School team, and I wasn't actually doing that well. I wasn't doing too well against him, to be quite honest.
He's a good player.
He is a good player.
He was a good player.
And so what he did was he resigned the game to give me the point, and that allowed me to become the Otago Southland School People's Chess Championship. And I remember Graham Hayes was the director of play, and he's going, "Are you sure? Are you sure that you want to resign?" and he was, and it
You've
was.
got some stories there,
And it was kind of like, and sometimes it was kind of his feeling. Oh, I don't want Ben to win. I'll resign the game and give it to Andrew. It was kind of quite hollow, and so I ended up winning it, and and so then we went on to the Otago, the National School Pupils Chess Championships, and Ben and I were staying at this house in Petone. And we were very generously put up there by a minister and his wife and children, and so we would go along and play the game. Well, I prepared for Ben in a particular opening, and we got into that game, and I ended up being black instead of white, and the game really should have gone to Ben. I mean, there was a particular move that I played which was a weak move, and it could have been exploited much more. And I think what Ben did in that particular game was he was wanting for a bigger prize, and so he didn't take what was on offer at the time. And as it turned out, I was able to get back into the game.
You swindled him.
Well, I wouldn't. I actually.
No, you didn't.
Well, when David says swindle, actually, I started to play well, and I.
That happens, doesn't it?
It does, and then we got to a point where I played a move, and following Ben's response, it allowed me to play checkmate. So I was able to checkmate him, and that was
the sacrifice on C3 or something.
It was
C2 or
it was a the
C3.
I was able to get my queen to C3.
Can you see? By the way, can you see what I'm talking about?
The queen.
We can.
The queen. I'll tell you in a moment. So he had a king on A1. I had a pawn on C2. He had a pawn on A2, and I moved my queen down to C3. And that was checkmate because he had nowhere to go. And in games like this, sometimes the reaction can be quite emotive, and nothing against the Ben of today, but his reaction was to that feeling of wanting to stand up and give me.
We won't say anything.
Give me a bunch of fives on the hooter.
He just felt like it. See, if you feel like it, it's not the same as actually doing it. So,
no, that's absolutely right.
Down there.
No.
They were only school kids.
We were only school kids.
We did all sorts of things.
And to be quite honest, when we were school kids, like we'd go on to the chess club. And if anyone was listening in on our conversations, you'd think that we're going out to murder someone, because we'd say, I'm going to play David Weeg tonight, and I'm going to pull him apart, and he won't be breathing at the end of it. You'd say things like that. I never
say that sort of thing.
This is the sort of
thing. I never say I'm going to go beat David Weeg and pull him apart and dissect him.
Not everybody was nice as David, you see.
So anyway,
that's how we did think about it.
Let's move on.
Okay.
No, just joking. But I'm not used to competition. If you get what I mean, it's probably going to come out really loud. That sort of that outburst of laughter, that outburst. How do you relate chess to life? Now you've talked about your work of it a little bit. But how do you relate chess to life? It's sort of quite. You've already, I think. I'm not saying you statements here, but. It seems like you've already gone over a bit of that already.
I think you can to a point, but I think that there's. I tend to look at chess in probably a different way to a way a lot of people might look at it. But I think that I do have a belief in God, and I do believe that God is a creator, and I believe that in the sense of chess is a gift. Like a lot of other things are, and we can find a lot of enjoyment in playing the game of chess. So I think that there's higher dimensions than just playing the game. There are certainly a lot of similarities to life, but in terms of the game itself, I think it's something that I think God's given us so that we can enjoy and have pleasure in the creation.
So are you saying that God gave us the game of chess?
I would.
Or do you think that, because it's been kind of man-made sort of thing, but I mean, there's a variance for players that one player will say because we've got lots of different religious and non-religious beliefs
Yeah.
amongst fellow chess players,
Mm-hmm.
even stronger than the likes of anywhere I get up to and that sort of thing, and great minds.
Yeah.
But what I notice myself is there's a lot of difference what one chess player says from that of another, where one chess player will say about like the science of chess or the maths of chess or the artistry of chess and all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, everybody's going to have probably their own personal view around things. And when I used to read quite a lot on chess as well, there's this reference made to a famous poem that's attributed to Sir William Jones, who was a viceroy in India, and in the particular poem he has some lines which talk about how Mars gave the game of chess to the dryad or the muse Caïssa, and so within a chess context a number of players have given reference to Caïssa watching over them and so on and so forth. Now, I don't subscribe to that particular view per se, but I think that chess in some respects could be considered as a war game. I don't play it that way anymore. If I play it,
we used to throw pieces around in those days, didn't we? We used to have big heavy metal pieces.
I think you're probably talking about your childhood, David.
No.
But what I would simply say is that
I think you were there.
I was probably just an innocent bystander.
Yeah, of
course. But all I'm saying is that when I play nowadays, I'm not out there to destroy my opponent, and crush their soul, sort of thing. I'm there to play a game and enjoy the game, and to shake hands afterwards, and to learn to be a better player, and potentially pass on some tidbits to my opponent. So it's more about building up people, whereas my attitude used to be more tearing down by the defeat of the opponent. And so, as I say, just if you take the context that I'm coming from in a Christian context, well, it's simply that I do believe that God created everything that we get to enjoy in life that's good, and chess is one of those things. So in a sense it's kind of like if I'm enjoying a game of chess or playing a game of chess, I'm playing it in honour of my creator as much as the enjoyment of the creation.
Any advice to budding new players?
I think if you're a new player, it's like anything. You have to give of yourself to being successful, and generally speaking, the more that you do give of yourself to being successful, the better you'll be. Nowadays you see a lot of emphasis on chess coaches, so I think David's got a real skill in that area.
It's not about me.
No, I know it's not about you, but what I'm trying to say is that sometimes to actually realise one's potential, it actually helps to have someone who can take you on a journey, and they can take you on a journey far greater than where even the coach could be. And you've got that example of Gerald Williams again, who after time it was quite easy to win against Gerald, but what Gerald did beyond the game was absolutely fantastic. I mean, my sister got to go to Australia, represent New Zealand, went and played in Chess Olympiad, and those are wonderful benefits. None of that would have happened unless there'd been a coach who was prepared to help people have opportunities to go on to greatness.
So apart from chess and church for you,
mm-hmm.
generally speaking, what in life is important to you? What's a few things that are important to you in reasonably brief order?
Well, I think with we've got a life, and what we do with our life does matter, and so whatever we put our hand to, we do it to the utmost of our ability. We look to do it as honourably as we can, and you can apply that into many things. And so that's kind of how I look at it. I mean, at the end of the day, if I get to well over 100, which I'm aiming for, and people look back, what are they going to say about me? What did I do? What difference did I make? Because it's not really about me. It's about what did I leave behind? What sort of, if you want to get a bit more deeply meaningful, it's about legacy, and whether that's legacy in a family, or a club, or a community, and the world in that way. Yep.
So, thank you. What helps you at the chessboard, other than going to the lavatory to analyse things on the chess?
Well, of course,
pocket chess set back
well,
then?
that you would never do. You would never do that, and I honestly never had cause to do that. I remember one time.
Have you ever cheated? Because I have, and it didn't work.
Well, certainly not over the
long time ago.
Not over the board. There was I did play correspondence one time, and I kind of run out of time, and I sent the move off, and I really hadn't, and it didn't reflect the amount of days I'd used, and my opponent came back and said, hey, time. And I conceded that was the case, and that's not how you play. But that sometimes when you want to win so much, you can cut a corner, but it's never pays to cut a corner, because
no, it doesn't work.
Even if you win the game, even if you
feel bad about it,
you actually, the only person who's cheated is oneself.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, it's a good question actually. I'm just going to write that one down.
Sure.
Have you, because I have you ever cheated?
Yeah.
What happened? So, and so moving along, we got two of these papers.
It's all right.
Two. I did warn them.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Strengths and weaknesses. What comments have you got?
Around, you were talking about chess here?
For you, anything. It could be anything. It could be life. It could be, because it's about chess and life. It's not just about chess.
Yeah, sure.
So it's your pigeon.
I think the thing is that we can sometimes we can overanalyze things, and so look, I'm probably quite an analytical type person because that's what I do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there's only so much we can analyse, and so there's a term called analysis paralysis, and that is where we actually overcook things to the point where we actually can't even kind of make a decision. So
and the sort of intuition, like you're talking about earlier, sort of kind of shuts off a little bit, doesn't it? And also, when we're making candidate moves in chess, when we're thinking about candidate moves, some grandmaster, it might be Grandmaster Sokolov, also mentioned that if you have too many candidate moves or something like that, or you analyse it too much, you end up playing the wrong move, or you don't even play one of the candidate moves, you end up playing something completely different.
Yeah.
And so that is a weakness with overanalyzing.
Well, I think it is, but also I think that there's another thing to be said, and that is that sometimes first impressions intuitively can be the best moves. So the idea of candidate moves, for people perhaps who don't know, is that when you're in a particular position, there's a particular way of thinking where you look at what are the what are
few
the moves?
examples of
What are the
moves are
what
handy.
potential moves could I make in this position? There may be 2 or 3, there may be 4, there may be just 2, there may be just 1.
Right, forced checkmate.
Yep.
I'm a checkmate. I can't move.
And in those situations, you typically would say, what are the candidate moves? And you'd look at the pros and cons of each one, and then you'd fall on one of those candidate moves and make it your actual move. But sometimes with that, we can get wedded to a method, and actually we just need to be sometimes free enough to go with that intuition and not get too hit up with the analysis aspect of things.
Okay, I've got one that I often speak to my juniors, or the juniors that are in my care, to coach chess in. The question is, and this by the way is the position that you see here, is a game that Andrew played in 1983, and he's black, and it's the King's Gambit. We could go back over it, but we're at the point. So I say to my juniors, if they make a mistake when they're analysing or something like that, I say, did you learn your chess in da-da-da, or did you learn it in Canterbury? And so I'm placing a provincial love of our province, which happens to be Canterbury now. But I also say to them this: I think it's very unfair in chess, stalemate, especially when I've got a one position, and all of a sudden my opponent's managed to sort of swindle me into a stalemate. Because in real life, stalemate would not happen, would it? Because if the king had to move, tough luck. You're going to die, tough luck. So what do you think?
Well,
do you think I'm a bit eccentric on that one?
I think that it's
cynical.
It's really just the rules of the game. And
how boring.
And I kind of think it's quite cool, because
do kings go on holiday? Do they go do they just sit there on that square their whole life? When they go to G1 or G8 or C8 to B8 or maybe A8 or A1, etc. Do they ever think, and how long does it take to castle? But do they actually ever think about going on holiday and saying, look, I just want to take off here, I just want to go?
I think that you're probably breathing too much life into the game there at this point, David. But what I simply say is that
you're joking. There's no chance of it.
In the game of in the stalemate, where basically you get into a position where your opponent can't move anywhere, and you may have an extra piece, and there's no way.
And a rook and a knight and a bishop and 14 queens extra.
Yes, but we're talking about practical games, not these made up ones. So I'm just saying that I quite like it, because you could be sort of in a losing type position, and you could then come up with a devious plan of stalemate, and I just think it's just such a wonderful thing to be able to do it to your opponent. Of course, if someone did it to me, I might feel differently, and that's probably what David's talking about. But I do think it's one of those things where chess is about being on your game throughout the whole game, and if someone loses the game not loses the game, but if it ends in a stalemate, tough cheese.
The difference between you and me, of course, is not that it's got to do with me, but the difference between you and I is the point of no return. I can't even remember what I was going to say, so don't worry about it. But
that's a stalemate.
The difference is because why not? Why not? If you get told you can't do something, why not? Why can't the king go for a holiday?
I tell you, we had a really funny experience. I was at intermediate school, and McAndrew Intermediate would have.
It wasn't with me then.
No,
I'm done.
Possibly not.
I thought I was funny once.
But we would play against Tweedsmuir in Invercargill, and we travelled down to Tweedsmuir, and the game ended up in a stalemate. And the skill there said, You've lost the game. You've lost the game. You've lost the game. You caused a stalemate. I said, no, I haven't. And so we were playing in the library. So I went to the chess library and I got a book out and it explained the rules of stalemate. And that was how I got my half point.
That's funny because it's true, isn't it?
It's a true
these
story.
adjudicators and referees and umpires, they're usually about 1 year older than the kids that are playing in the tournament, and they go up. I saw, to my horror, that they would go up to I was coaching this whole school in chess, and they ended up going to the I don't know, intermediate champs or something, and here they were, the umpires or the referees were going around and they're saying to both the black and white, is anyone winning? And they were both too scared, usually, to say, yeah, I'm winning, I'm 500 pieces up. And, and so then if they said no one was winning, then they'd just say, draw. And I go, what? Oh. You've got to be kidding me. It's not a draw. Black's one, white's one.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Obviously needed David there as the teacher or the adjudicator.
No, they don't. It's funny how the rules of chess just cannot. What was that here? Where to from here? And I'm not talking about where I'm taking you soon in the car, or in another few hours when I get there. We'll get there when we get there.
So like nowadays, like I've got children who are still growing up. Some have left home and gone on to start their own family and so on.
So he's a grandfather like me.
Yeah, I am.
That's good.
And
it happens.
But what I do nowadays is I don't have a lot of time to go up to the chess club, but I do play online, and I play people. Not too many games because I don't have enough time to spare.
Yeah.
But I do that as a form of relaxation, and that's kind of what I do. Two or 3 years ago, I played. Had a comeback playing in a over the board tournament in Wellington.
The Lightning Champs.
I did do that, but about a year or two before that, I played full length games. Over the board, and I really enjoyed doing that again. And you've got say 20 something years to think about all the things you could have done better, and I did feel that I did better. And so it's good to keep dipping the oar in the water, and there's always things to learn. And then usually as we get older, we do pick up wisdom along the way, and that can help us win games.
We usually do, not all the time, do we?
Well, we usually do. I'm not going to personalise it, David, though.
And where was I up to now? I was just thinking, who's most developed in the position that you see to the right or the left of your screen?
Okay, so
who's most developed
in the game? Actually, you could say that white is, because they've got
they're just one move away from stalemate draw. Positionally castling on the queen side,
about 3 moves away from losing. However,
I think it's
they developed 4 minor pieces to my 2. One of their rooks is, you might say, is developed because it's not on its starting square. Kings are on the starting squares,
and you've got all the pieces down the bottom.
My queens, both queens are developed, so to speak.
Yours is very airy on D4, isn't it?
And what? I'm a couple of pawns up. So
if I had the move here, if it was white to move, I would be screaming out at everybody to play knight CD1, and I'd be That might be a new line, Andrew.
You know, look, the trouble with having
It's
David
not White's
here
move.
is that yes, it isn't his move, and so he's quite
No,
right.
it's not my.
I thought
I'm not White.
When he said that, I thought he just found a refutation for this game since 1983. But no, he hasn't quite.
It's like my junior. He's my 8-year-old, 9-year-old junior. He's finding smothered mate straight away. I'm going, and he goes queen g1 and loses his queen for almost nothing, and he even plays knight f2 check.
Wonderful,
mate.
Wonderful.
Yes. So we do need to probably. Do you play blindfold chess?
I have played blindfold chess. I actually played blindfold chess at David's house in
Do we have no
Dunedin.
chessboard?
No, I think there was
The
a chess.
chessboard was stolen
No,
from us.
no.
It
There
was in the swimming pool.
No.
Where was it then?
It
Was it in the kitchen cupboard behind the tile?
David, in David's house in St Kilda, there's a room off to the side of the front door, and we used to play in there, and we were there with Kendall, and David was there, and I was playing blindfold, and David was moving the pieces, and Kendall was playing blindfold as well. Kendall was a very good player.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I actually had a checkmate position, and just as I was about to announce it, my colleague on my left pointed out the checkmate, and that was the end of the game. So I have played it, and but I'm not at the level, say, of a Jonathan Sarfati.
No,
who
definitely
can
very
do
hard
that.
to get that.
And he plays numerous people at one time with blindfold, which is
15.
that just shows the caliber and the ability that he has.
One day I might get to interview him. That'd be good.
It
I'd
would
have
be.
to go all the way to America. Do you find focus important?
Well, you kind of focus is kind of like absolutely pivotal. It's a bit like if you're driving a car. You know, if you get tired, pull over and have a sleep. Right? You can't do
And
that.
you don't go over the speed limit, do you?
Well, I
You
can't.
never go over the
Look,
speed limit.
these are questions I'm not prepared to answer on camera. But what I would say is that
I've already answered it.
what I would
Because
say,
he never does. He
what I
doesn't go
would
1
say-
kilometre over.
what I would say is, David's trying to throw me off now. But you've got to be on your mettle all the time. It's a bit like in a game of chess, and I'll give you a good example. You get up to you're spending all this effort getting up to move 40. And you'd be surprised how many people lose a game of chess at move 41. You know, you've met the time control, all the pressure's off, you relax, almost go to sleep, kind of thing. And then the game's lost, you know, and that is the most frustrating thing. And it's possibly one of the hardest things to deal with in chess, because you can be winning for 39 moves and be lost after move 40, and then you've got to kind of go home and then try and get over the trauma of the loss. It is a bit like that.
So what's 0 times infinity, please, Andrew, Mr. Mathematician?
Well,
0 times infinity.
Well, it's probably naught.
Okay. Why?
Well, if you times anything by 0, the answer is 0.
So where's the 0 gone?
Well, the zero, the zero's still there. 0 times infinity equals
But you've
0.
just gone times infinity, whatever that means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so the mathematical rule, as I understand it, is 0 times infinity equals 0. 0 times 1 is 0. 0 times 2 is
Okay,
0.
all right. You know the answer to that question. Good on you. Well done. I can't still understand why. In my way of thinking, I think, well, what's happened to the infinite? You know, where's it gone? It's gone into nothingness, into zero. It's gone into it. I don't know how it can do that.
You might just have discovered the first mathematical black hole, David.
And so, what happens when an immovable, can't do an outtake, sorry, it's too long, I'm not going to do this again. What happens when it's funny that a movable object meets an irresistible force? What happens, please?
Well,
what's your opinion?
I think that they probably don't go too far. because if they're both equal weights, then they're going to cancel the
Oh,
one
they can't.
another out.
But they're both. One's irresistible and one's immovable.
No.
So how can that be?
Well, they're irresistibly immovable, so therefore
It's physics, is it?
I think it's P equals mv. Yeah.
Not that I understood what that meant, but
Momentum equals mass times velocity.
yes, I think I heard that from my engineering friend in Otago Chess Club. From there, what do you think of Boris Spassky, round 6, 1972, applauding Bobby Fischer?
Well, I think that just shows that Bobby Spassky really was a gentleman in the way that he responded, because if you think about the Russians and you think about the Americans in the height of the Cold War, really there was a lot of enmity going on, and clapping your opponent is really kind of not the thing that you would be expected to do, because you'd be expected to...
They do it in tennis, don't they? A bit.
Yeah, they do, but I think in the game of chess that's virtually unheard of, and that's what we sometimes call being magnanimous.
Now, when did you first become aware of that?
Well, it's sort of as I got older. I mean, when I was in Standard 4, I think it would have been, Standard 3, so we're talking about 1977, 1978, 1976, around those areas. I was still at primary school, and yeah, there was some of this stuff was out on the media at the time about how Bobby Fischer won the world championship from a Russian and broke that whole Russian cycle.
Yeah.
And so that inspired a lot of people. Yes, in '72, even earlier. But even in the even later on in the '70s, it was still being talked about. And then as you get older, then you find more about the story, and of course there have been some movies now, and those movies I think have been well done, and you can see it for yourself, and I think it's a great thing that he did.
Yes, I think that's that must be amongst the best sportsmen of all time for chess to do that sort of thing. Whereas people like Alexander Alekhine, he would just I think he's completely better as a chess player, of course, but he would just let the cats walk over the chessboard and that sort of thing, and where he knew his opponent was allergic to cats.
Oh, okay. Well, I can't comment about that.
That's what he would do. Anyway, you probably can't comment because it's probably just made up. It could be made up.
Yeah, it could
Not
be.
really.
Could be. It could be that he did that. Alekhine. I was thinking of a one-liner here, but maybe he did not take a liking to
whatever. Now yes. Now Andrew's, you're a bit of a comedian, aren't you, Andrew?
I'm actually a sit-down.
Like
I'm a sit-down comedian, because every time I stand up to tell a joke, people tell me to sit down.
That's really funny. Everyone's laughing.
Yeah, I know. I can hear the laughter on YouTube.
And so, thank you. That's the most important thing to get on about, because it's all the C's, isn't it? Christianity, chess, comedy, cake, coffee, cream. All those sorts of C words.
Well,
coaching.
Yes. Well, you've
channeling.
Yes.
Analytical.
Well, I think there's certainly a lot of C words that you've used there, David.
I'm not going to say all of them.
You can make a career out of it.
Yes, there's this humour.
Okay,
it's natural, isn't it? It's absolutely natural. It's exquisitely natural.
Well, if you're going to have fun, why don't you have fun doing it? So there you go.
Okay. Yeah, that's fantastic. No, it is quite good, because some of them, I just saw one there that was posted by Andrew via the humour site, and it was of a glass coffin, and you can't see the remains or something like that.
Yeah, well, it's just,
you fail to see the remains.
That's right.
Because it's nothing in the coffin. So I have to explain the jokes, see.
It's okay. It's okay.
It never works for me. I always get in trouble for explaining the joke. Yeah, do you know what I mean? No, I'll explain myself. And so
the other day, there was someone I knew. They they were wanting to get buried in a particular cemetery, and the council wrote back and said, "I'm sorry, but we had to close that cemetery because people have been dying to get in."
Yes. That's an old one.
Like that. Oh, yeah, of course it is.
It is.
Because David can remember it, you see.
Yeah, so it must be really old. Thank you. Boy, he's sharp, eh? No wonder you're good at chess, Andrew. You're quite sharp, aren't you?
Well, I can go on for hours and hours, you see. But
who taught you to be so sharp?
Anyway.
You're a professor yourself. And so...
I don't profess to be.
What do you... Okay. What piece do you most like? And then, please answer, what piece do you most dislike?
Look, I would.
So, what piece do you favour?
I would say that the Queen, because the Queen is arguably the most powerful piece on the board.
Okay, so it's your favourite piece. It's the first time someone's answered that. Someone else, a Fido Master, said, "Oh, no pieces at all." Because he's covering the board. Of course, he's not going to show favouritism. Because some people do show favouritism, don't they?
Well,
to their if you go up to their bishop, they take off, even though you're offering a queen up for their bishop. They go, no, you can't have it. No.
Yes, I mean, some people like the rook and the bishop because their intent is to win by hook or by crook. But there we go.
Well, were you trying to... I get it. I'll explain that. You were trying to rhyme rook with bishop and bishop with rook or something like that.
That's right. I was.
Hook or by crook, hang on.
Crook or by hook, no. Anyway.
Or bishop line or something like that.
Moving on.
Oh, we're moving, are we? What are we moving? What piece do you most dislike? The queen, I suppose.
Well, you could also say that as well. Only in that, because the queen is so powerful.
Yeah.
The queen can work. I like to think that the queen is working in my favour, but my opponent's queen is certainly not working in my favour. So
I spoke about that before, by the way. You're repeating yourself.
Am I? It's just as much as I like to dish it out. You can then, the queen can be a double-edged sword. Okay? So just be aware of that.
Okay, so I will have to teach the juniors that are in my care that they're not actually in my care, because I found out that I'm not actually the caregiver. I'm the coach.
That's right.
There's another C word. See, I'm not going to be the caregiver. So I have to make that distinction. So it actually saves me on if they have to do or something happens, they fall off their chair and health and safety are involved, and the chess club that I'm there at, all of a sudden they're in trouble for someone's jumped over a paper clip. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm stretching the barrel. Now, we've heard about your strong beliefs, morals and ethics. So any strong beliefs, morals and ethics other than we know we're crazy Christians, another C word, if you spell it with a C but not with a K.
I think,
Can't get away.
I'm
sorry.
No, that's all right. But I think that
you cannot get it. carrots. Oops. Sorry.
Yeah. So, I think the thing is,
He wants to wrap it up, like the present, like the Christmas decorations behind us.
I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting for a pause. But what I was going to say is that, essentially you honour people, and you honour people by showing respect for people, and we can always disagree over things.
Yeah.
But we can always have respect for people, and one of the key things I think is that as much as possible we seek to live at peace with one another, and get on. I mean,
even when they don't want to live at peace with us, that's right.
Well, and that I think that's probably the most one of the most strongest things, because there has been a saying that if someone strikes you on one side of the cheek, strike them back on their side of the cheek.
Yeah.
If someone
that's what you do in chess.
If someone stabs you, stab them back, and all this kind of stuff. And then you have Jesus who's saying, if someone slaps you on one side of your cheek, offer them the other side. If someone asks for your shirt, give them another shirt. If they ask you to go 1 mile, go the second mile.
Yes.
And actually love your enemies. Well, that goes against a lot of ideology that you find in the world
that we've got now, and it's so prevalent, isn't it? Now it's just getting stronger and stronger.
So I think that these principles, they're more than just principles. But those are the sorts of standards that I certainly seek to live by, and and if when we make mistakes in life,
most of the time,
when we make mistakes in life, we have to be prepared to own up to those
most of the time
and get back on track again
most of the time.
And
I saw that wink.
That's
actually not very good, is it? A wink.
I've nearly finished.
A wink and
nearly finished.
A wink and a?
Most of the time.
Okay. Increments or sudden death? What do you prefer? And with the chess clock, what do you prefer? Do you like increments or do you like sudden death, like the clock when it runs out of time is? So there you go.
Okay, that's an interesting one, because when I used to play, you'd have the red flag, and when the red flag fell, it was all over.
What's that mean?
The red flag on the we used to have clocks that used to have hands on them. So so when the big hand got to near the 12, this red flag would start to tip, and then when the big hand had got past the 12, the red flag would fall down, and then you could claim a win on time, right? And so you'd have sort of like 40 moves in about 2.5 hours or something, and then the
grass grows outside while
and
we
then
play
another hour,
chairs.
and then another hour for the next 20, and so on and so forth.
Goes.
So in all of that, that was quite exciting. But now with the incremental stuff, it's different. I think what's better about it is that you don't have adjournments, because adjournments I don't think are really in the interest of the game. If you stop a game and come back to it, it means you can do a whole lot of analysis and potentially turn around lost games, or and so on and so forth. So if you can't win at the board, then that's certainly the way to do it. Incremental stuff allows for basically a long game to be played fully, and I think that's better for the game. And if you don't meet up with the increments, the flag's still full, so you've got that lovely imagery there.
So your longest game, what's that been? Can you remember your longest game off by heart, the whole game?
I don't know.
When you made your move. And
I don't think I would have.
When it cuts to you here.
I had games where you would have to adjourn those. I really didn't do a lot of eating while I'd be playing a game. Probably.
Did you eat? Oh.
I would have black coffee, particularly if I was...
Yes, I remember the black coffee.
I'd sometimes do that because I was so annoyed about how I played that I'd sort of punish myself by having black coffee and then try and turn the game around. But I don't do that now. In fact, now if I'm playing in a tournament, I'll just drink ice water and keep myself cool. And then the main thing for me these days is to be relaxed, because I think the more relaxed we can be in a game of chess, whatever the situation is, the more relaxed we are, the best tends to come out in us. The more tense we are, it's just not good for the whole nervous system and so on.
So, and your shortest game, is that the game that we're seeing right here? We've only played 3 moves to get to this position.
The shortest game probably was something like a 2-move checkmate, because that was the first thing we kind of all used to learn.
The 4-move scholar.
The scholar's mate.
Yeah.
Anyone can Google that.
How many did you do that of?
Well, we used to try. We used to try and do that all the time.
Every time White was
Friday
playing
night
A1.
chess, like you put your pawn out to E4, your bishop to C4,
Yeah,
your
we
queen
know.
to F3.
Yeah, we know.
And queen
Even
takes
my junior
F7
knows
checkmate. That's good. And if they didn't fall for it on 4
smothered
moves,
mates.
if they didn't fall for it in 4 moves, then you try for 5 and for 6 and for 7 and for 8.
Keep trying to move that queen around your favourite piece.
And then eventually you learn, well, there are better ways
piece.
of playing the game than trying to win that easily.
But you can win that way.
You can.
You can. When did you stop trying to win that way?
Well, it was a long time ago, because ultimately you it's a bit like, you watch
Susan Polgar's got a remedy for black to how to combat someone trying to scholarmate you.
I'm sure she does. But
she does. It's fantastic.
The thing is, when you notice when children are playing things like football, they all try and run around the football together. And as they get better, they learn to pass the ball.
Exactly.
And they learn to play strategically, and that's what you do when you're playing chess.
But I just let them run after the ball and all sort of get the ball quick, and it's like that. Like when I've seen a photo, a caption next to the photo was, guess where the ball is, and it's like all these 5-year-olds were playing soccer or rugby, and you just have to look where the crowd is, and that's where the ball is, because there's about 50,000 billion kids all around the ball, all trying to, I want the ball.
No, it's true.
They're not going on holiday like the king.
Yeah. Now, how are we getting along here?
Oh, we're only on the first page.
Well,
Okay. Well, we can do sort of quick answers really now.
Okay,
if you like.
Let's go to that, and then we'll finish on this game.
Yeah, we will.
Cool.
Please remind me, because I've got a bad memory and I'll forget, that black has just been met with white's move of queen d2. So it's only 3 moves away from checkmate. So that's, if you're getting bored of hearing my voice on the local chess channel that is primarily meant to be your channel, think about the game of chess and try to work this out, because my junior would have had this done about 5 hours ago, even before he even sees it on the board. That's what he's like. So anyway, he's fantastic.
Scary.
He's really, really, really good.
That's scary good.
He looked at I told you before, he looked at an advanced chess problem in my book, and he came out with a response. He said, "Oh, I know what the answer is." I thought, "What? It's not possible." It's like it.
Well,
It's as quick as one of the primo puzzle solvers from the Canterbury Chess Club.
Sure. Okay. So, are we going? Do you want to do that game now? Is that?
Not. No.
Okay. Then you come with your questions then.
How do you handle losing a losing streak, if any? I mean, if you've ever handled a losing streak, or do you infamously or infamy sort of like depart and just give up chess? Because that's what I've done.
I think you can feel like that. Say that that national school pupils that I played in, where I did have a win against Ben, I went on to lose every other single game.
It didn't matter though, because you beat Ben.
Well, it did, because I felt, I felt that I was a much better player, and I'd that was the second time I played in the national school pupils. The first time I ever played in them, I got 4th equal, and so I thought that I would do well, and it was just really didn't go very well at all, and you know, and even in my last game, I couldn't win that game when I was 2 pawns up, you know. So it does get you down, and you just have to deal with the psychology of losing. And
it's good to lose, though, isn't it?
It's not
until you lose.
Well, the thing is, you can't become a great player unless you learn to lose well, in a sense, and you've got to learn from your mistakes.
Okay. This is a personal question for me to ask you. Now, I've just exceeded the age speed limit of 56, and I've gone to 57. Oops, the secret's out. For me, please, how to cope with being past 55. What do you... I'm sorry, I was meant to be under 50, wasn't I?
Well, look, I can't answer
We always have to keep under 50, don't we? Because if we go over 50, we're not driving like Andrew does. He never goes over 50.
David's got a personal assistant that tells him to slow down. However, what I would say is I can't answer that question because I'm not there yet. But if I were, I think the main thing is
I don't think you'll get there.
I will. But what I'm going to say is that, you know, just because we do age doesn't mean that we're past it. So, it's a true story.
True story.
You heard it right here on David's.
What are we talking about
chess
here? We heard it here first on David's chess. It's not my chess channel. It's your chess channel. Now, what did that actually mean? But anyway, we'll move on because we'll just leave. I'm not actually sure what he means by past it when you get over the age of 50. I'm not sure.
Some people say that you're no good as a chess player if you get over 40. I mean, Garry Kasparov stopped playing shortly after 40, right? But you know, you look at Viktor Korchnoi, who went on for years and for years and for years, and was still a top player. Yes. And I think the thing is that we don't write ourselves off because we've still got a lot to offer.
No, because we don't really want to admit it that we're over 50.
Well,
and so we just end up being a chess coach.
I'm over 50.
2 C's.
I'm over 50. I don't have a problem with it.
I've got the Canterbury Chess Club. I was going to try to find. I was going to use the word kid, and I was going to use it like a CID, but then I'm going into criminal investigation defence party. You know?
I'm not sure why you went there, Dave.
I don't know why. I was just trying to use the C's there. Okay. What is that written on there? Does anything at the time back then really annoy you at the board? Quick answer, please. Just going to try to make them reasonable.
Does anything annoy me at the board?
At the board, yeah.
Well, I think the thing.
What sort of things really annoy you?
When I have been playing well and then I do something silly.
So nothing about your opponent.
No.
Your opponent can't annoy you.
Well,
if they're swiveling or
the opponent can annoy you.
Dying.
Definitely, they can.
If they die, you wouldn't.
However,
you get chalk
you kind of
with the sea.
You kind of like, I don't know if I should. I think David's interviewing himself now. However, what I simply was going to say is that yes, there are players who can set out to niggle them, but actually, at the end of the day, you kind of just have to rise above any of that sort of thing.
Oh, that sounds very pious of you.
Well, it is, and you can always lay a complaint to the director of play if it's really nigglesome.
Or the arbiter. What are they called now? Are they called director of play, DOP? We used to call them a DOP.
Well, at the end of the day, they're there.
Where are they?
They're the officials. They're the officiators of the rules.
They don't always help though.
Well, they're still the officiators of the rules.
You can't go to them and ask them if any help is forthcoming. So anyway, what if opponent you don't... What... Is there an opponent you don't like?
No.
Okay. Oh, that's good. Thank you. Can I have that in writing, please? Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. I'll have that in writing soon. Do you have a nemesis?
Any what?
A nemesis in chess.
A nemesis.
Did you ever have a nemesis? I have, but it's not about me.
I think the thing there is that you have players who are, that you grew up with, who are strong players, and they were the ones that you had to overcome. I wouldn't call them people that they wouldn't call them enemies or anything like that.
Not enemies. I don't mean enemies. I mean, it's like just every time you play them, you might even have a one position. You might be a piece up, but they just keep on beating you. Not.
I think I have had experience where some people seem to have my number, and so you as much as you try, it almost seems like you're having to overcome some invisible barrier. And but I found that Kendall was one player who typically won all the games against
Scrabble
me.
champion.
And
too.
then yes, he was. My word, was he a good Scrabble champion? Get that?
Like words like
my word.
Yeah,
Anyway, you put it on a triple word and you get 3 times the prize. But
but you're using 2 words.
Well,
you're not allowed to. Are you allowed 2 words in Scrabble?
So
we're deviating. Are we?
Yes, we are. We
Are
are.
we
But
deviating? Moving on.
Simply to say that I got to a point where I actually won a game against him, and then once I'd won a game against him, it was easier to believe that I could do that again.
Okay, so are you someone's nemesis then? Are you someone's? Well, every time I play Andrew McIntosh.
I don't think that. Like say for example, is insofar that I can recall, like between.
So far,
yes.
You sound like you're saying someone's name then.
No.
Sorry, I won't mention names. I don't drop names. He does.
This is a very long interview here. But what I was going to say was that my score I think against Ben was even. So I had a win against him, he had a win against me, and we had 2 draws. That was about the only games we ever had.
And he's won the New Zealand Championships when he was still in New Zealand about 40 times.
Not 40. We're talking about Auckland Sarapa if you're going there.
No. Ben was like from Otago, and he won about 40 times, I reckon. I kept hearing the news. Ben's won the New Zealand.
I think. Look, he's done extremely well, but
yes, he has.
And so all credit to him.
So, what if you could wave? Is it WAIVE? No, just joking. If you could wave a magic wand and play someone to beat them, if you had a wish, you had 4,000 wishes, because this wouldn't be one of your 3 wishes, but if you had a multitude of wishes, and one of those wishes were, you can wave the magic wand and play whatever chess player in the world ever has been on the planet, and beat them with white or black, who would that player be?
I would probably say Magnus Carlsen. I mean, I think that he is the...
He might be available. He might actually answer to you. He might say, well, we'll see about this loss thing.
Look, I think, when he was 13, I think he was showing extreme signs of promise against people like Kasparov and Karpov and so on and so forth. I mean, chess is still growing in terms of its depth and breadth. He's probably the best player on the planet at this time.
So, who most would you like to lose? Not like to lose to. Not much to lose, but I mean, you might like to lose to your granddaughter.
Well, back in the day, my sister and I played probably hundreds of chess games.
Yes.
Against one that I used to hate losing to her, right?
Oh, right.
But, look, at the end of the day, we're both grown up now, and so,
You still don't want to lose to her, though, do you?
I'm not. I don't.
Sibling rivalry.
Personally, I don't really care, because you grow up, you grow out of that.
Yeah.
But certainly back in the day, we would play, and I might win a number of those games, but my sister was very competitive, and I wouldn't always win, and I didn't like it, but she was capable. And good on it.
So how do you approach more than one serious game a day? What would you say to people that are, if they got 2 reasonably serious match games on a day or more, what would be your approach? Excuse me, that was a word from my sponsor, of course.
Okay, sure.
Just to say, look, this interview's going on a little bit too long. I don't know if we can pay Andrew McIntosh as much as we
what
said earlier.
He's
not $100 a minute, by the way.
What I would say,
he's $1,000 a minute.
Well, no wonder the sponsor's losing money. What I was going to
he's
say,
not giving. The little wee baby isn't giving any more sponsorship after this interview.
What I was going to say was
that
when you're preparing for a tournament, you actually need to put in the preparation well before you get to the tournament, because essentially the more preparation that you put in for the tournament, the better.
Very good advice.
And so when you're going into a tournament, what you need to do is work out what are the openings I'm going to use. What's my first line openings, is black or white?
Yeah.
What am I going to do against certain oddball openings, because there's always going to be oddball openings. How am I going to handle those? What sort of opponents potentially am I going to get? Because if you've got an opponent who loves playing aggressively, then you want to get them into the most boring positions possible, because that
so you play men not bored.
You absolutely have to, and that actually can help win games. And one of the greats of the game was a guy, Emmanuel Lasker.
Yeah, definitely. And he's probably that great.
And he was able to. He wouldn't necessarily play the best moves, but he'd play the most pragmatic moves that gave him a psychological edge over his opponent. So you do those sorts of things. And the other things I would say is you make sure that you're absolutely fit, whether it's walking, getting out on a bicycle, going for a run, going for a swim, whatever you do, that's good. And it's also eating well. And like I played in one tournament and I would have lost about a couple of kilograms, just through all of the expending of that nervous energy. So it's working out what's the best diet, what's the what liquid, and coffee's not always the best thing to have, because it can stimulate you. It can stimulate you, and then your mind can race, and you're not necessarily pausing enough to look at the position in a way. So that's why I go for ice water or something like that when I'm playing a game.
So like you would probably agree with probably the general principle is diet, sleep, exercise, and not bogging yourself down with lots of in between games, chess games or whatever, and getting out there and breathing the fresh air and that sort of thing. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
Now, quick question and quick answer.
Mm-hmm.
Positional or tactical? What do you favour?
Positional, because tactics comes out of good positions.
Okay, that's your answer. What do you consider you are? Intuitive or working it out?
Both.
Okay, you're covering your bases on all fields at the moment. I've just noticed. I think I'm not sure if I'm completely comfortable with that. But you're saying that you're a bit of a Capablanca, sort of like you'll find you'll build up a position nice and gently and slowly, not like the one that you've seen right in front of you, by the way, Pete. I just lost the plot.
It's okay. It's okay. It's happened a few times, but
no. What's your favourite chess book and why? In a few words, please.
Favourite chess book.
Not a big
There's a book out at the moment on.
It has to be your favourite chess book.
Well, I would say that it is my favourite at this particular point in time.
The one that I've got.
No, it's the magic. It's the magic of Tal, and it looks at his style of play in terms of his sacrificial play, and the various types of sacrifices, which include intuitive sacrifices as well as concrete
Analytical ones.
sacrifices that are foolproof, through to how do you combat sacrificial play, because that was he was one of the great masters of that sort of style of play.
So, you said something about, was that because I'm sorry, I was interrupting. I didn't know that you were going to not let me interrupt. But was that because of the recommendation from that Indian on the internet of recent time that you've looked at?
No, it was just that I saw the book come out in the library first before I ever saw that video. But the recommendations of the particular Indian master on YouTube were very good, because there are certain books that will help you, and it's a bit like having a chess coach, but not one who's speaking to you, but one who you can sort of self-guided coaching, if you like. But you're playing through the games of the greats, or you're learning from people who've condensed a lot of chess knowledge into small amount of a book.
Right, thanks, Andrew. What's your favourite immortal chess game? And do you like, if they want to have a look at, I mean, you could mention a game that David Weeg and I played that you saw and that just inspired you greatly.
Well, the one that I
don't mention Magnus Carlsen, because everyone, or Weasley,
I think there are two of them. There's that come to mind. So there's this game called the Evergreen game.
Yes, excellent, awesome.
And it was a King's Gambit, and it's probably one of the greatest King's Gambits ever played.
That position.
And then the other one that I think is amazing was an early game of Bobby Fischer against one of the Burns. He was playing, might have been, I'm not sure whether it was Walter or David that he was playing.
Yeah.
But I
think it was David Burns.
He played an absolutely brilliant game against, I believe it was in English. And after that game,
he never played the English again.
After that game, Mikhail Botvinnik was said to have made the comment, here's someone that we need to watch. And I think, given that Mikhail Botvinnik held the World Championship for so many years, he recognised the greatness in Bobby Fischer in that game. It was just absolutely amazing.
So, your favourite opening for white, please, Andrew?
Roy Lopez.
For black?
For black, the Roy Lopez.
You like both of them? That's similar to me.
Yeah, it's a wry comment, but it's true.
Yeah, and it's also you got to watch out for Spaniards.
Especially, that's actually Roy Lopez was a bishop, so you have some influence coming through there. As
do you know when he played it?
About 17th century.
1700.
And then another player was the Traxler, and Mr. Traxler, he was a man of the cloth as well. So you get a bit of that flavour. And I really do like the Traxler, as otherwise known as the Wilkes Bar.
That's quite popular, isn't it?
It is.
I see some people trying to play it here and there.
I try and play it.
Yeah, I know. We won't go on about it. When you know your weaknesses and strengths, what weaknesses do you do? What do you do about them? Real quickly, just like a paragraph.
I think there's two things there. One is that sometimes we can see where our faults are, and where we're aware of what our faults are. Then we look at strengthening our weaknesses, right? And but the other thing is sometimes we're not always good at seeing what they are, and that's where a coach or having other players that kind of like your chess buddies can help identify those things, and you basically play for your eliminate the negatives and play to your strengths and all those sorts of things, so you become a good all-round player.
Right, that's a good answer. Sounds like you read that in a book.
Well, it's just knowledge I've picked up along the way, David.
Oh,
Some
okay.
of it was in a book.
Planning in chess, do you, or something else?
Planning in chess, did you say?
Yeah, I'm saying, do you plan in chess? Do you think, well, this is my plan, and do you stick with it, or do you?
Well, I think what you do is, as I recall, I mean, there was a guy called Ludic Pacman, and Ludic Pacman, Czechoslovakian player, wrote some brilliant books on strategy. They came in 3 volumes out through Batsford, and I went through those when I was about 12 or 13. They were some of the best books I ever did. And but he's kind of saying that a fail to plan is a plan to fail, and it's better to have a bad plan than no plan, but always be prepared to adjust your plan, because I might have a great plan, but if the plan of my opponent is greater, then I'm going to be on the losing end. So adjusting my plan to, in a sense, undo his plan while improving my plan is sort of the way that I think of that.
Okay, yeah, that's good. What part of the game do you enjoy most?
Well,
quick answer.
End games, because chess is all about the end game. If you don't understand the end game, you don't understand
about the movie
chess.
Too. End game, yeah.
Well, that was quite good too.
Yeah.
But that was about Avengers.
Because we're in the end game right now. If the queens come off, is it an end game or not in the opening? Is it an end game or not?
No, I think it's just a queenless middle game until you get down to the end game. That's
the Magnus Carlsen and someone else's answer too. Yeah, so you're on a high there. That was the first correct answer.
Yay!
And what part of the game do you least enjoy?
I think
losing.
Well,
winning.
I think that the part of the game that I least enjoy is.
Was when I have to play David. Please say yes.
No. How would I say? Yes. I mean, like, I think that sometimes it can be any part of the game, really, but sometimes it can be as much as the opening as anything else, because you may think that you've got off to a good start, and then your opponent does something and you're off to a bad start. So in one sense, if you get a good opening, you usually tend to get a good game. If you don't get a good opening, then you're kind of on the back foot the whole of the game, or worse, and so probably least like being in a back foot opening situation.
Okay, so social or serious chess, prefer what?
Both.
Okay, yeah, covering the bases. Costs of subs. Do you think that they can? What do you think about cost of subs for club subs, generally speaking?
I think club subs are pretty reasonable. I mean, if you're paying $100 to $200 or something like that, that's probably not too unreasonable. I mean, a club's got to pay for the cost of its premises. It can't go down the tubes because it's not getting enough income. So you kind of got to expect that. What potentially could be done, I think, by clubs is potentially considering have some sort of sponsorship. If someone's a good player but they can't afford it for any reason, then potentially have the ability to sponsor a player. And there's opportunity also with business. I know in Christchurch, there's at least one very generous businessman to Canterbury Chess, and sponsorship, and other ones more at a national level perhaps, and they make all the difference, because if you can get if you can run a good club and you've got people who can provide a source of finance, then you can keep going for a long time, and not die out because players couldn't afford it anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So helping others or keep secrets to oneself. I know you've answered this already.
I'm very much of the view that chess.
He taught me this.
Chess needn't be. Chess can be a selfish thing where you sort of keep all the secrets to yourself, but ultimately, I think the more that you share the secrets, in a sense, you
like that book you just said
you
before,
actually
the
learn
book.
you actually learn more. So you learn a lot by coaching. I mean, it's your students who teach you, and so I think giving away that knowledge pays dividends in broadening the whole chess knowledge. I think if it's not to give away, it's never really going to be all that it could be.
Right now, I know this is about chess and life, but anyway, the 8-year-old junior that is almost 29, and I've also got another 8-year-old junior who I'm not sure when she's 29, are finding when I'm going through Bobby Fischer's complete games, Bobby's attacking moves and seeing combinations, even queen sacrifices quickly. What do you think of that?
Well, I think it's quite natural. I think that if you consider this, babies' brains are far more active than adults' brains, and as children grow up, they are soaking in all sorts of things, and then eventually you go through your puberty, and the brain will prune itself, and it'll emphasise the things that you've learnt. And it's not to say that you can't learn things later in life, but you tend to as younger, and probably the processing power of the human brain in a child is greater than that of someone who's gone through puberty, gone through and become an adult. So we shouldn't be ashamed if we get beaten by an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old or a 12-year-old.
Until it happens.
Well, but even then,
I've been beaten by one.
There's no shame in that.
Yeah.
No shame at all. But we probably think that we should never lose to a child. But we just need to think of it differently, because really they are gifted.
And they're not pruned back on. Maybe they're not so worried about whether or not this is a good move or not. They just sort of come across it intuitively.
Yes.
So, what does, in your opinion, Andrew, David McIntosh, a typical chess club miss out on?
What do they miss out on?
Yeah, just a typical chess club. What feedback do you think, without it being too long, because we haven't, there's a lot of things wrong with chess clubs. But
well, look, I think the
on?
most important thing is to be welcoming and to be friendly, and to be looking beyond just providing an opportunity for people to come and play a game of chess.
They're all the strong players also.
It's about actually growing the game as well.
Yeah.
And you can only grow the game, I believe, by attracting juniors and so on and so forth. And I think that there's tremendous opportunity for having a chess coach who can get alongside of people. I mean, up in Auckland, there's a particular player up there who coaches up there. His first name's Ewan, and look, he's a very, very good player. Played for many years, and still is. And so when you see people like Ewan, Murray Chandler, arguably our greatest player that we've ever turned out, giving back to the game, having been in the top 20, that's fantastic. And it doesn't really matter where we are on the scale of greatness as a chess player. The work. I'm not saying this as a plug, as a grease up to David because he's interviewing me, but I think the stuff that you do, David, and sharing on things that you've learned is tremendous for Canterbury Chess, and I really encourage you, in that, because there's not too many people who do it, and the people who do will be rewarded in the success of those younger opponents.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Now, what can I've done that one? Did I? So, what can a chess club improve on?
Oh, that was the answer. I've just kind of really said it all.
I've asked that one. I thought I had.
Yeah.
Do you prefer to eat with a spoon or a fork, or do you use a knife?
Look, I don't.
It's a trick question.
I don't really care as long as it goes
Okay.
in here, and I get the goodness out of it.
So if you use a knife, do you have to have honey on it, like, or do you just eat peas on a knife? Because there's a reason why I'm asking this.
I would typically put peas on a fork because
Do you prick them?
No.
Okay, all right. I'll work that out. So it's very important because someone said to me, someone very close to me, Andrew is very, very close to me right now because he's in proximity to me, obviously. But I'm not going to use the C word like close, proximity, close together, because they don't belong together. They're separate.
It's nearly the close of this video.
It is the close, almost. You've discovered, this is the main point of this whole discussion, is you've discovered a family member is interested in chess. What comment, if any, have you got?
So there's probably a couple of things on this. So, like I was, in my situation, I was adopted, so I didn't know who my birth parents were until much later in life. And I've had the joy of being reunited with my birth mother and building a relationship and then following that also with my birth father.
Missing pieces.
I found, actually, it's like putting the pieces together in the sense of a jigsaw puzzle more than a chessboard. But my birth father also enjoys playing chess and has his own chess books and chessboard and so on and so forth. And so he would spend about an hour a day playing that game. So it's an amazing thing that even if you're separated from your family for whatever reason,
it is amazing
at birth, that you can be reunited later and find all these things in common. And chess isn't the only one. There are a lot of other things as well. There you go.
So would you if you were still sort of like with your father, who do you think would win between you and your father?
Possibly I would. I mean, we've never played, but I would only say that's probably because I've had that opportunity, the experience from my youth that I can draw upon, and that would be the only reason why I would think that that's probably the case.
Because it's quite interesting. I find that really, really interesting that he's got a love of the game, or that he's got a liking to it, that he devotes a portion of his day, whatever that may be, because he's quite an intelligent. He's high up in the university, isn't he?
Well, he was until he retired.
Yes,
so,
of course.
And that's just a general thing. I mean, it's general observation of, that a lot of the people that we got to meet through the Otago Chess Club were associated with the University of Otago as well, and were leaders in their own fields. And so, it's not that you have to be an academic to play chess at all, but you do tend to see people who are drawn to certain fields of interest, and certainly chess is one of those.
So would you like to, first of all, I'd like to thank you very, very much for getting in trouble with your host, that sort of thing. But thank you very, very much for the long-awaited chess and life interview with you, Andrew David McIntosh. I really appreciate your time. I know that you're very busy, and so I'm going to keep saying thank you.
That's
Like my friend tells me off for at church. I say thank you for telling me off for thanking you. And so now I would like for you to hear that I'm thankful for you.
That's okay.
But now I want to ask you to, like you're opening a chess tournament, I would like you to close this chess interview by commenting, and I will not say anything about White has just played Queen D2, and you talk about this as long as you want, and as long as you believe you can get away with your host.
In this game, White had moved the Queen to D2, as we can see here, and my queen had just gone from the square on f6 to d4, and the reason why he did that was primarily because this pawn was then on pre, and in this position I began to think about it, and then as you do, your heart begins to beat faster because you suddenly see, oh, I think there's an opportunity here. And the move that I played really,
I hope you saw it.
Really did take surprise. So we can just do the pause for 1, 2, 3. And so what I did then was I played queen takes here, check, and really there wasn't too much choice for him here but to take my queen back. If he chose to move away, I'm going to eat the rook as well, so that would have been that would have been kind of worse for him, but what happened was one might say worser. So he played here, and so now I've given up the queen.
1, 2, 3.
And then the next move is there's one of the tactics in chess is called a discovered check, and so I then move the knight to here, and so he's in check from my knight, he's also in check from the bishop. Now the interesting thing here is that this is the point of my opponent's resignation. Some opponents will resign rather than actually have checkmate played on them. If he had gone back to here, my knight comes in here, and that is, as the info message box says, that's mate. My bishop has got him pegged in, and my knight now has played the check, and that was the end of the game. That was about 16 or 17 moves. That was in 1983. My opponent, has gone on to his own distinguished career in journalism, and he was one of the authors, along with Nikki Hager, who wrote a book about some civilians who were killed in Afghanistan, and that resulted in an inquiry that is taking place at the moment. So for me, that was probably the best game that I ever played, because it was kind of like a perfect game, but to get to that one perfect game probably cost me about 1,000 games, and so it's my evergreen game. No one can take it away from me, and it's just one of many that's contributed to the richness that that makes up chess history. So it's on the internet, so that other people can enjoy it, like some of the other great games. This is just happened to be one that went my way. I'm just glad the other 999 aren't online.
Thank you very much, and we hope you enjoyed this creative, collision, conversational discussion with a C.
Conversation, David. That starts with C. Thank you very much for having me, by the way, David. It's been a pleasure.